let's go. We're diving into Varanasi today.
Sounds exciting.
It is. I mean, we're talking about one of the oldest living cities in the world, right? And we've got a whole bunch of articles here just waiting to be explored. Think of this as like a crash course on everything Varanasi.
Varanasi boot camp. I like it.
Exactly. So if you've ever been curious about the city, this deep dive is for you. We're going to uncover some seriously interesting stuff. I'm talking about a city believed to be, get this, older than history itself.
Older than history? Wow. Okay, you've got my attention.
And that's not even the half of it. We're also going to talk about frog marriages. You heard me right, frog marriages. Apparently, they do it to please the rain gods.
That's definitely not something you hear every day.
Oh, and get this, the Ganges River. They say it has the power to wash away your sins. So get ready, folks, because today, we're going deep.
All right, I'm ready to dive in, but first, maybe some quick context for our listeners.
Sure, lay it on us.
So, Varanasi is also known as Kashi or Benares. It's considered one of the holiest cities in India for Hindus, and it's right there on the banks of the sacred Ganges River. We're talking about a place where spirituality is a part of everyday life. It's woven into the fabric of the city.
It's amazing to think about, people have been living in Varanasi continuously for, what, thousands of years? Like even before recorded history, right?
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you think about all the people who've walked those streets, all the stories held within those ancient buildings. Mark Twain was absolutely captivated by Varanasi. He even said that Benares is older than history, older than tradition, older even than legend, and looks twice as old as all of them put together. It makes me wonder, what was it about Varanasi that drew him in so much?
Well, I think part of it is that feeling of timelessness you were talking about. But for Hindus, what makes Varanasi particularly special is the belief that it's the home of Lord Shiva and goddess Parvati.
Ah, right, the Hindu deities. So that makes it a pretty significant spiritual destination then.
Exactly. It's literally considered to be the abode of God for Hindus.
Wow. I've also read somewhere that Hindus believe if you die in Varanasi, it grants you salvation. Like it frees your soul from this cycle of rebirth, right?
You're exactly right. For Hindus, salvation is like the ultimate goal. It's about liberating the soul from this continuous cycle of death and rebirth. And they call this cycle samsara, by the way.
Samsara, interesting.
And samsara is driven by karma. So the accumulation of all your actions and their consequences over many lifetimes.
Okay, so karma is like what you do in this life will impact your next life.
Precisely. Dying in Varanasi is seen as a way to break free from that whole cycle and achieve moksha.
Moksha, which means?
Liberation. It's about uniting your soul with the divine. And this belief, it impacts everything in Varanasi. From daily rituals on the Ghats, those steps that lead down to the Ganges, to like every single temple in the city.
Speaking of temples, I read that there are over 2,000 of them.
Over 2,000. Can you believe that?
It's mind-blowing. I mean, are there any that are like more well-known than others?
Oh yeah, for sure. You've got the Kashi Vishwanath Temple, which is dedicated to Lord Shiva, and the Durga Temple. That one's pretty interesting because it's believed to have been built by a Bengali queen back in the 18th century.
A Bengali queen in Varanasi.
Yeah, fascinating, right?
Yeah.
The Durga Temple is known for that bright red color, and it's got this really distinct North Indian architectural style.
So we've got temples, and then we got those ghats, right? The steps down to the Ganges.
Right, 84 of them, to be exact, each with its own history and purpose.
I bet. So I'm imagining these ghats, like bustling with activity, but are all the ghats used for the same things?
Well, many of them are for bathing, washing, and for religious ceremonies. But then you've got two ghats, Manikarnika and Harishchandra, which are specifically for cremations.
Cremations? Wow, okay.
Yeah. Hindus believe that if they cremate their loved ones at these specific ghats, it ensures their soul reaches heaven.
So again, that focus on death and the afterlife. I mean, for some people, the idea of cremation ghats might be a bit, confronting, especially right there in the middle of daily life.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique aspect of Varanasi. It's a reminder that in this city, death isn't something to be feared or hidden away. It's just part of life, a transition to another state of being. That acceptance of death, it's deeply rooted in their belief in reincarnation. Death isn't the end, just another step in the soul's journey.
So it's all about fulfilling your purpose in this life.
Right, it's about living your Dharma.
Karma, that's like your duty.
Exactly, your duty in this life.
Wow. So it's not just about the afterlife, it's about living a meaningful life right now. And speaking of meaningful, I've heard that the Ganges River itself is incredibly sacred to Hindus, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the most sacred river in Hinduism. They believe its waters can wash away your sins, purify your soul. Millions of pilgrims travel to Varanasi every year just to bathe in the Ganges, to perform ceremonies.
I can only imagine. And then there's that nightly Ganga Aarti, right?
You know it. It's this mesmerizing ritual they perform on the Ghats every night. Fire, light, chanting. It's an offering to the river.
What's it actually like to witness that Aarti? It sounds incredibly immersive.
Close your eyes and picture it. It's sunset, right?
Yeah.
That golden glow over the Ganges. The air smells like incense, you hear bells ringing, chanting, and then you see these priests dressed in saffron robes moving gracefully, performing these intricate rituals with lamps and flowers.
Wow, it sounds magical.
Truly is.
But Varanasi isn't all about temples and spirituality, is it? It's also known for, like, those exquisite silk saris, right? And those intricate brocades.
You got it. It's a major trade center.
Mhm.
And the craftsmanship, it's just incredible. You know, a single Banarasi sari can take like 6 months to weave.
6 months? Are you serious?
Seriously. These artisans create elaborate designs all by hand. It's amazing.
That's dedication. It seems like Varanasi is a city that really values tradition and artistry.
It absolutely does. And that goes beyond silk weaving, too. Varanasi has a rich literary history. You mentioned Munshi Premchand and Tulsi Das, but there's more. We've got Banaras Hindu University, which is one of the largest residential universities in Asia.
Wow, so we've got ancient history, deep spirituality, beautiful crafts, and a thriving intellectual scene.
It seems like Varanasi has it all, doesn't it?
It really does. But you know, you mentioned earlier about some surprising facts. I think it's time we got to those.
Oh yeah. Get ready, because we're about to talk about frog marriages.
Frog marriages. Okay, I have so many questions.
Well, it's a unique tradition, that's for sure. Basically, when the monsoon seasons is delayed, sometimes the people of Varanasi, well, they try to please the rain gods by arranging weddings for frogs.
Wait a minute, are you serious? Like actual wedding ceremonies for frogs?
Yeah. Picture it, a priest on the banks of the Ganges, solemnly officiating a frog wedding, complete with tiny garlands and a little miniature wedding canopy. It's definitely one of the more unusual things you'll see in Varanasi.
This is incredible. Why frogs, though? And what do these weddings even involve?
Well, they believe that frogs have a special connection to the rain gods, probably because they're associated with water. And the weddings are basically a way to encourage those gods to bring some much-needed rainfall, especially when the monsoon season is running late.
Oh, I see. And the ceremonies themselves, what happens?
They can actually be quite elaborate. They dress the frogs up in tiny costumes, and they often have music and feasting, just like a regular wedding. It's fascinating, right?
It is. I mean, who would have thought? It really goes to show Varanasi is full of surprises. It's a city where, like, these ancient practices still hold so much meaning for people even today.
Exactly. It's a blend of spirituality, tradition, and, well, a touch of the unexpected. That's what makes Varanasi so captivating. It really makes you think, about how those traditions have stuck around for so long. It's like a window into how people in Varanasi see the world, this deep connection to nature, this belief in a bigger order to things.
It really does. I mean, where did those beliefs even come from? How do they evolve over time? But hey, we've been talking about Varanasi being incredibly old.
Right.
Like potentially over 3,000 years old.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
And it's been inhabited that whole time. So what's it like for the people who live there today? In a city that's so steeped in history and spirituality, is daily life just all about religion and rituals?
Imagine waking up to the sound of temple bells. Right. And that scent of incense in the air. Maybe you start your day with a ritual bath in the Ganges. Life in Varanasi definitely has a spiritual rhythm to it. But it's not just about observing religious practices,
So it's not like life comes to a halt 5 times a day for prayer.
Nope, not at all. It's a bustling city. People are going about their day-to-day business just like in any other city. They're running shops, going to school, raising families.
So how is it different then?
Well, it's like spirituality is just so deeply ingrained in the culture there. It's in everything.
It sounds like a real city of contrasts then, like ancient rituals existing side by side with modern life.
Exactly. Varanasi's a mix, a tapestry. You've got the sacred and the mundane, all woven together. You might see a shopkeeper performing a puja at his storefront, before he opens up for the day. Or a group of kids playing cricket right in the shadow of an ancient temple.
That's amazing. I mean, have they found anything like archaeologically to give us some clues about Varanasi's earliest days?
There have been some excavations, yeah. They suggest there were settlements in the area going all the way back to the 11th century BCE. But a lot of people believe Varanasi is even older than that. Its origins are like shrouded in myth and legend.
Oh, come on, give us a legend.
Okay, well, some accounts claim that the city was actually founded by the god Shiva himself.
Wow, that's incredible. It makes you wonder what those ancient walls could tell us, right? If they could talk.
Right. Think about it. All the empires, all the dynasties, all the people who've lived and died in Varanasi over the centuries. It's like every brick, every stone holds a piece of history.
So much history. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the spiritual side of Varanasi, but what about its artistic and cultural scene? We know about the silk weaving, but is there more to it than that?
Oh, tons more. I mean, Varanasi is a melting pot of artistic traditions. It's known for its classical music. Legends like Ravi Shankar, the sitar player,
Of course.
and Ustad Bismillah Khan, the Shinai maestro. They both had strong ties to Varanasi.
Wow, that's impressive. What about dance? Do they have a particular dance style associated with Varanasi?
Absolutely. You got the Banaras Gharana, a style of classical Indian dance that's known for its grace and those beautiful, elaborate costumes.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
It's a real treat, and it's been passed down for generations, Really special.
It is. And then there's literature. We talked about Munshi Premchand and Tulsi Das earlier, but is there a thriving literary scene happening in Varanasi today? Like, are people still writing, sharing their work?
Absolutely. Varanasi has this long, rich tradition of storytelling and poetry, and it's still going strong. They've got literary festivals, poetry readings, book clubs, all sorts of things. It's a very intellectually stimulating place.
I can imagine sitting in a cafe, overlooking the Ganges, sipping some chai, listening to poetry.
It's the perfect setting, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Varanasi offers, this chance to immerse yourself in culture. It's ancient, but it's alive, You see spirituality, art, everyday life all coming together.
It sounds amazing. But with all this emphasis on the sacred, on the spiritual, is there room for skepticism in Varanasi? Are there people who don't follow the dominant religious beliefs?
That's a good question. It's important to remember that while Hinduism is definitely the main religion, Varanasi is also home to people of other faiths. You got Muslims, Buddhists, Jains, Christians.
So it's not like everyone thinks the same way.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Varanasi is a place where different faiths, different philosophies have coexisted for centuries. It adds to the city's richness, its complexity.
I mean, it sounds like Varanasi is a place that could really challenge you, push you to think about things in new ways.
Well, you got it. It makes you ask those big questions, right? Wrestle with life and death, faith and doubt, tradition and modernity.
And maybe there aren't any easy answers, just the journey of exploration.
That's the beauty of it, I think. Varanasi invites you to engage with it, to embrace the unknown, to find your own meaning within its ancient walls. It's not about finding all the answers, it's about the journey.
It sounds like an experience that would stay with you long after you left.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Varanasi gets under your skin. It stays with you. It makes you think even after you've come home.
It's interesting. We've talked so much about death being a big theme in Varanasi. The cremation ghats, the belief that dying there brings salvation. But how do the people there actually view death? Is it something they're afraid of, or is it just seen as a natural part of life's cycle?
It's a deep question,
Right.
And the answer, I think, lies in understanding their concept of reincarnation.
So you're saying because they believe that death isn't the end, that it's just a transition to a new life, they don't fear it as much.
Exactly. And in Varanasi, you can really feel that belief. It's in everything. You see it in how people approach death. It's not with fear or dread, but with acceptance, even reverence.
So it's not an ending, but a continuation.
Yeah, it's like a stepping stone. And in Varanasi, they believe that journey ultimately leads to moksha, to liberation from the cycle of rebirth.
It makes you wonder, right? If this whole idea of death being just another stage of life, if it makes them appreciate the present moment more, knowing that life is fleeting.
It's a good thought. That awareness of impermanence, it could definitely lead to a deeper appreciation for each moment, a desire to really live, to make each moment count. It's something we should definitely explore further as we continue our deep dive.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much depth we've found in Varanasi. We've talked about the Ganges, about death and reincarnation, those crazy frog marriages.
Yeah.
Varanasi is this incredible mix of ancient traditions and, just everyday modern life.
It is.
I have to say, though, those frog weddings, they really stuck with me. Can you tell me a little bit more about what actually happens during those ceremonies? Like, what are the rituals?
Well, it depends, It can vary a bit from community to community, even from family to family. But usually they dress up the frogs.
Wait, seriously? Like in little outfits?
Yeah, like tiny little colorful costumes. Sometimes they even make a mini mandap for them.
A mandap. Isn't that the wedding canopy?
Exactly. Like a miniature version just for the frogs. And they usually have a priest officiate the ceremony, and there might be music, chanting, offerings to the rain gods.
Wow. It sounds like they really put a lot of effort into these frog weddings. It's incredible that these traditions have survived for so long. I mean, why do you think that is?
I think it speaks to how connected the people of Varanasi feel to the natural world,
Yeah.
And to their belief that they can influence it through rituals and ceremonies.
So the frog marriages are like a way of showing their respect for nature and trying to ensure a good monsoon season.
Right. It's a powerful reminder that even in a world that's becoming increasingly modern, ancient practices can still have deep meaning for people.
It's like a link to the past.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've talked a lot about how Varanasi has this special relationship with death.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier how it might actually influence how people live their lives. Can you elaborate on that a little more? Like, does it make them appreciate life more?
It's hard to say for sure, but it makes sense, doesn't it?
Huh.
If you're constantly reminded of the fact that life is fleeting, maybe it makes you want to savor each moment more, to appreciate the beauty of life, even its fragility.
Right.
And, it could also make people less attached to material things, to worldly concerns. Maybe they focus more on their spiritual growth, on seeking moksha.
Because they know it's not all about this life.
Right. It's about the journey of the soul.
That's a powerful thought. That understanding death could actually make you appreciate life more.
Yeah, I think it's all about perspective,
It is. Well, this has been an incredible journey, this deep dive into Varanasi. It's a city that really challenges you to think differently, to expand your understanding of spirituality and culture.
Yeah, I agree.
It's definitely left me with a sense of wonder, a desire to learn more.
Me too.
If our listeners could take away one thing from our deep dive today, what do you think it should be?
That's a tough one. Maybe just the idea that there's always something new to learn. That different cultures have so much to teach us about life, about the world, about ourselves.
I like that.
Varanasi is such a rich, vibrant place, historically and spiritually. It challenges us to broaden our horizons, to consider different ways of thinking about the world, about our place in it.
Beautifully said. It's been a privilege to explore Varanasi with you today.
It has.
Well, listeners, that's it for our deep dive into Varanasi. We hope you've enjoyed the journey.